Back in 1960, and we have this ENDA law, this Employment Non-Discrimination Act, right now that just passed the Senate that would prohibit discrimination against people in the workplace because they happen to be gay or gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, basically because of their sexual orientation. There's a parallel for this. The Supreme Court has ruled that gays have the right to marry. Right? We just last year, basically. Well, actually not, but you get the point. The Supreme Court has kind of gone in the direction of, let's say, Brown v. Board with regard to this. And in 1954, in Brown v. Board, the Supreme Court actually ruled that segregated schools were illegal. They were unconstitutional. So in the election of 1960, this became a big issue. Should we pass a law, or should we enforce the laws that were on the books in such a way that employers who were saying, you know, most of my customers are white, they don't want black waiters waiting on them, or they don't want a black store clerk taking care of them, so why should I offend my customers? I just want to hire white people. And that was a big issue in the election of 1960, and it was part of the Nixon-Kennedy debate. And Nixon took the position that really you should just leave it to private business. We'll try and make it ever. We will get together. In fact, he said as vice president, under Eisenhower, he had the attorney general sit down with these chain store, the Woolworths, because they wouldn't let black people sit in the lunch counters. He said, we're going to sit down with them and ask them to be nice. And we saw how that worked out in the mid-60s. Kennedy, on the other hand, said, I'm going to use the law and kick their butts. Here's just a very short clip from this, and then we're going to have a conversation with C. Edmund Wright about it. Here, first of all, is Richard Nixon from 1960.
I have talked to Negro mothers. I've heard them try to explain how they tell their children how they can go into a store and buy a loaf of bread, but then can't go into that store and sit at the counter and get a Coca-Cola. This is wrong, and we have to do something about it. So under the circumstances, what do we do? Well, what we do is what the Attorney General of the United States did under the direction of the President. Call in the owners of chain stores and get them to take action.
Right. And, 6 years later, they were still going after them with axe handles and fire hoses. And so here's what John Kennedy said he would do.
Senator Kennedy.
Well, Mr. Nixon hasn't discussed the two basic questions. What is going to be done and what will be his policy on implementing the Supreme Court decision of 1954? Giving aid to schools technically that are trying to carry out the decision is not the great question. Secondly, what's he going to do to provide fair employment? He's been the head of the Committee on Government Contracts. It's carried out 2 cases, both in the District of Columbia. He has not indicated his support of an attempt to provide fair employment practices around the country so that everyone can get a job regardless of their race or color. Nor has he indicated that he will support Title III, which would give the Attorney General additional powers to protect constitutional rights. These are the great questions. Equality of education in schools. About 2% of our population of white people is illiterate. 10% of our colored population. 60 to 70% of our colored children do not finish high school. These are the questions in these areas that the North and the South, East and West are entitled to know. What will be the leadership of the President in these areas to provide equality of opportunity for employment? Equality of opportunity in the field of housing, which could be done on all federal supported housing by a stroke of the President's pen. What will be done to provide equality of education in all sections of the United States? Those are the questions to which the President must establish a moral tone and moral leadership. And I can assure you that if I'm elected President, we will do so.
There you go. C. Edmund Wright is with us, conservative commentator, contributor to Breitbart and The American Thinker, the author of WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again. His website, C. Edmund, E-D-M-U-N-D, Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.com. And C, do I call you C? Oh, hang on. I've got to push the button. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
No problem. Edmund's probably a little easier, Tom.
Okay, Edmund, welcome to the program. I think that you've been on our program before.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, welcome back then. I'm sorry. I'm so terrible with names.
I was here with Mike, not you. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, welcome back to the program. In any case, so it seems to me that basically what's going on is in the Senate, the Democrats are taking the position that John Kennedy took, With only now the civil rights issue is whether people who are gay are going to be discriminated against in the workplace. And John Boehner is saying, there's no droids in this car. There's no problem here. This is something that should just be left up between the employers and the community and the gay people that they may choose to discriminate or not discriminate against them. Doesn't history indicate from what we just heard that Republican position loses?
Well, it might if your analogy was valid, but I just reject that there's a valid analogy between skin color and sexual preference. I mean, there are a lot of problems.
You don't think people are born with both?
Well, I'm not going to claim to know that, but I will say this. People do change sexual preferences, and they go in and out of the transgender lifestyle, apparently. So that at least is one difference. Whether or not it happens naturally or it happens as a result of culture, the fact of the matter is, and apparently under ENDA, you can be different things on different days, and your employer has to roll with the punches. I would also say that the racial issue there would have sorted itself out without government control. Now it ended up being government passed legislation. And
we've been working on that for almost 200 years at that time.
Well, I know, but you can ignore the fact that there's tremendous progress in that area or not. It's bad for the race pimp industry to admit that. But the fact remains, I just reject the premise that the two issues are equal. So I don't think the analogy holds up maybe more than 10%.
So you're suggesting that straight people wanting to discriminate against gay people, or for that matter, gay people wanting to discriminate against straight people, I guess.
You know what?
That this is not a civil rights issue, is your assertion?
No, I don't think it is, and I do. What you just said, Tom, I think is a good point. I think there are certain types of businesses that are in certain parts of the country that cater to certain clienteles that would actually benefit from having all gay or all transgender workforces, and that would be fine.
I'll tell you, one of the first jobs that I ever had when I was a DJ at WITL, on the weekends, I was the DJ at Joe Cavello's bar in Lansing, Michigan, which was the local gay bar, and I used to DJ the drag show and other things, and it was a great gig. I loved the place, I loved the people, and I was straight, and still am. And, I was very appreciative of the fact that, I was respected.
Let me ask you something, and I have no reason to doubt anything about that story. Wouldn't you have understood it if the bar owner, club owner, whoever hired you would have preferred, a gay DJ?
Probably, but having a gay bar, yeah, and this is where you get into these, is being in an organization that is principally like the NAACP, is that racial discrimination. And those are the kind of gray areas that I think don't make for a reasonable discussion on this. I think that, the reality is that the 99% of what we're talking about here are people who are living in fear that their employer will discover that they are gay and fire them. And it shouldn't be.
I would reject that premise, but again, I will say this. I think that a person who is gay or straight or confused about the two, that goes and puts in the time and the effort and the money to start a business of whatever kind, I think that person, male, female, or switching back and forth, should be able to hire and fire what is in the best interest of his and her business. Now, I will tell you this. I've had a couple thousand employees in my life. I have no idea what percentage.
Edmund, we're flat out of time, but you've made your point very well. People can check it out at cedmundwright.com. Thank you for being with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
C. Edmund Wright, he's the author of WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again, cedmundwright.com, the website. We'll